right, it being 5 p.m. the Lafourche Parish Council meeting of July 25th, 2023 is hereby called to order. Ms. Carleen, can you please conduct roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Adams. Mr. Groh is absent. Mr. Melvin. Mr. Wendell. Mr. Arabi. Chairman Oten.
Here.
Mrs. Chasson. Mr. Lorraine. President Chasson.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Carleen. If everyone would please rise, we'll be led in invocation by Councilman Melvin, followed by Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Wendell. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Also like to remind everyone that if you are interested in addressing the council, there are blue forms at the entrance that you came in. If you would kindly fill one out and get it up to the council clerk, we'll be sure to recognize you during the public wishing to address and or any other time that you're asking to discuss. And just as a reference point, when we get to ordinances, I will ask for public's input anyway. I'll ask 3 times for public's input, and then the council will discuss and then vote. And then on resolutions, only the council will discuss and then go to vote. So if you have something you're interested in a resolution, please make sure you address them during public wishing to address the council. I'll also respectfully ask that anyone that has their cell phone still on, please either turn it off or silence it as we conduct our meeting. With that said, we'll jump right into our agenda. Item A, approval of minutes. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the June 27, 2023 regular session that will defer from the 7/11/23 Lafourche Parish Council meeting. So moved by Councilman Jones, second by Councilman Adams. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Groh. Item 2, motion to accept the minutes of the July 11, 2023 regular session. So moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Groh. Item B, state and or federal legislative updates. Do we have any legislators in the audience wishing to address? None. Item C, we have none.
Yes, sir.
Item D, presentations and or updates. Number 3, Mr. Cullen Curo of Council for South Central Planning and Development to give a presentation on the small business loan through Restore Louisiana. Cullen, you have the mic, sir. Just make sure it's on.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? All right. I thank you for allowing me in today. We, South Central, are administering a program for the state of Louisiana related to Hurricane Ida. We're doing a similar program in the western part of the state. Again, same program for Laura Delta, businesses impacted by Laura Delta. And I guess I want to start by distinguishing it from the housing program that has the same name. And I know they're using this facility here to meet with the residents. This program is HUD money that came down to the state. The state has allocated $25 million of a $45 million pot to South Central Planning to basically hand to businesses impacted by. We're anticipating that number will be increased. But again, this is HUD money handed down to the state through the Office of Community Development. And there are some pretty rigorous guidelines to be made eligible, and let me see if I can go through some of that. The idea is that you have to have been impacted by Hurricane Ida. And again, I'll repeat, everything I say about this program is identical to a complementary program in the western part of the state. So if you know businesses here, wonderful. If you know businesses in other parts of the state, just call the same numbers. If you look at the map on the 3rd page of the slide, that is the program area. Again, the gold area is Hurricane Ida. Oh, that's me, huh? Let's see. All right, there we go. The brown or gold area is the Hurricane Ida eligible parishes area. The little exception to that is that Calcasieu. This is Hurricane Ida and a flood of May of 2021. So not as many people know about the flood of 2021, but I would think many of you around here do, because we did have some flooding in the northern part of the parish. So any businesses impacted by Ida or that may flood may be eligible for this program. So how do you become eligible? You have to have at least one and no more than 50 full-time equivalent employees, that can be the owner, if the owner is an active participant in the business. You have to have, of course, been open at the time of the disaster. There, of course, is a different date for the May flood versus Ida. You have to have had a minimum of $25,000 annual gross revenue. The idea is we're holding this money for full-time businesses, not part-time sideline businesses. The biggest bullet here is you had to have either experienced a financial decline. Now we're comparing 2020 to 2021 in your tax returns for that business, or we can compare 2019 to 2021. 2020 was an odd year with COVID, so they've given us those options. So you either had to have experienced a 20% decline, or, and I think here in Lafourche, you may have had a physical loss, $10,000 minimum in physical damage. Now again, it's not very hard to have had $10,000 in physical damage, your roof, a tree fell on your car, whatever the case. But we're talking about business damage. This is not residential, this is a small business program. The last bullet is that you have to either be back in operation, or if you've not been able to get back into operation, you had to be willing to reopen, and you have to basically get yourself a business plan and convince yourself that you can. We will assist you in reopening your business. All right, so once you're eligible, we're talking federal money, so the idea is that we are not going to fix your roof, because that would bring in Davis-Bacon and a lot more bureaucracy. This program has a lot of it, but again, if we were to do construction, that would add to that. But what we're doing is we will provide you as an award, and yes, that's a loan, up to 6 months of rent or mortgage, whatever your business may have, multiplied by 6 months. Non-owner employee wages and benefits. For many businesses, that number can go up very quickly. Non-owner, utilities, that can be gas, water, electricity, phone bill, cable, internet, or inventory. Again, for a retail establishment, you calculate what you pay in inventory, multiply by the month, multiply that by 6 months. Again, that number can grow pretty quickly. Add to that equipment, movable equipment and furniture. Again, I say movable because we're not talking about immovable equipment, which is basically a part of your building. So we can calculate the cost to replace equipment, replace and repair equipment that you have not been able to yet replace. Or we can reimburse you for equipment or repairs to equipment that you may have already replaced. This will all, of course, be compared to, you can't get duplication of benefits. So if an insurance company has already paid for a repair or a replacement, that would not be able to be considered. The last bullet here, I think, is the most exciting part of this program. This program can fund a piece of new equipment and or furniture that the business might make them more viable when that next disaster comes. I mean, the quick and easy example is a generator. If your pharmacy, if your gas station, you name the business, if they had had a generator and they could have, kicked off that business before utilities came into being, they might have been they might have been putting gas in your vehicle, but they were closed because of the utilities in the area that might have been off for a period of weeks in some parts of our parish. So again, I think that one is interesting and unique. We ask you to think of what that might be and help us to justify how that piece of equipment might help you the next time there is a disaster like the storm or the flood. So I think these options will help to create, again, what is called an award. Yes, it will be in the form of a loan. And I flip to the last slide. Loans have to be at least $10,000, up to $150,000, but I put it in parentheses because they say by exception. But as we're looking through applications, almost every loan exceeds the $150,000. So by exception, you can get as much as $250,000. So that's a pretty nice little chunk for businesses that have been struggling after the disaster, or again, if they hadn't been able to reopen. This is a nice little chunk of money that could help them reopen. So what's the big piece? Well, the next two. This is a 0% interest loan. This is a 0% interest loan amortized over 7 years. There's no payments for 6 months, so you're really saying 7.5 years. The real nice piece, and again, yes, it's a loan, but it's a forgivable loan. After you've paid back 60% of whatever that dollar amount is, if you've dotted your I's, if you've crossed your T's, and what I mean by that is you've turned in receipts, you've followed all the after the loan requirements, you've turned in copies of your tax returns. It's all simple stuff, but again, it's after you've gotten the money in your hand, you need the evidence that you've used it as you said you would. So when that 60% threshold is met, we check out your file, and if you've done what you're supposed to have done, 40% can be forgiven. So again, it used to be when we did Katrina, we did a grant and loan program. Well, this is not a grant and loan program, but at the end of the day, it can be the same thing. The difference is it's not a grant on the front end, it's a forgivable loan on the tail end. And yes, you will be sent a 1099 reflective of that dollar amount, but again, if you can qualify for $150,000, and we did this program in another part of the state after the floods of 16. It's a wonderful program. I've handed out many, many checks for $150,000. When they pay back 90, they're done. And think about it with $250,000. You pay back $150,000, that last $100,000 becomes a grant. It's forgiven. So I would like your help in finding business owners that may not know about the program. We have, and all of you have a brochure, and I will leave as many as we need. The South Central 1-800 number is 1-800-630-3791. South Central's website has an application. It is a fillable application. We have set up offices at the South Central building in Houma. I've set one up in Galliano. We have them in Booty, Laplace. We're going to be speaking, well, we spoke to the mayor of Lockport, and we're trying to see if we can find maybe a place to go 1 day a week or something like that there. Help us to find these businesses and let them know about this opportunity, because it is, in my opinion, it's a great opportunity. Yeah, it's a lot of paperwork. It's federal money, so we have to expect that. But you can do the application online, or you can come to our office and we'll have somebody talk you through it. You can fill it out online and then come back to the office and ask you questions, or again, you can do it however you want to do it, whatever makes you more comfortable. We've got a lot of staff that are eager to get these applications into the system. Any questions?
I got a question.
Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, this is the second time I see this presentation, and has people been submitting for this or not?
Yes.
From Lafourche, I know
Well,
Terrebonne is probably involved too, Lafourche, a few parishes.
Statewide, and by statewide, Laura Delta
Statewide.
Ida, we have over 300 applications. In Lafourche, I would say we probably have 50, 60, 70 applications.
Because I know you came down to Bayou a few times, and I
Right.
caught you on one of those deals.
Right.
So I know a couple of people I'm going to talk to and mention it to them.
Well, I would appreciate that, and again, it's a great opportunity. If they decide not to do it, then that's fine, let it be their decision, but let it not be that they don't know about it.
Mr.
Thank you.
Melvin. Good? My only question is, I don't see any dates on this, so is there a deadline date, or it hasn't been determined yet?
As of right now, the deadline is December 31st, and I'm glad you asked that, because again, the housing program with the same name has a survey that you have to have done by August 1st, and that's just right around the corner. This is not the same program. The current deadline is December 31st. My opinion is that might be extended. Again, I can't promise that, don't know that, but we've got time.
Good. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Cullen.
All right, thank you all.
Item E, Legal Advisor Report. I don't think we have any. Brings us to item F, Engineers and/or Architect Reports. Got one hidden in the back.
Good evening, Michael Slavinsky with All South Consulting Engineers. I'll be reporting on 5 projects tonight. The first project, Alador Drainage Improvements. We had final plan review with Lafourche Parish Government this week, Public Works. We have a few edits to make. Plan to have the plans out of office by Monday, submitted to LADOTD for concurrence. Estimated construction cost, a little over $3.3 million. And this is a project that has partial funding by the statewide control program. Any questions?
None yet.
Next project, Des Almonds Drainage Project. Right now, preliminary plans under review by Public Works. This project is divided into two phases. Phase 1 and Phase 2, Phase 1 being north of 90, Phase 2 being south of 90. Total construction, estimated costs, a little over $770,000 for both phases. Matthews Trailhead, which takes place right here in the parking lot of this office. Matthews Trailhead, the final plans were delivered to the parish. The estimated construction cost for this project is a little over $363,000. Home Place Pump Station. We've submitted the detailed damage assessment. Currently, the parish is negotiating for additional eligibility of damages on this project. The estimated construction cost is a little over $900,000. Bayou Vista Drainage, our last project tonight. This project, the agreement for engineering was approved in May. We are kicking off the topographic surveying, which is occurring this week. The estimated construction cost for this project is a little bit over $1.2 million, and this project is funded by the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. Thank you. That is all the projects we have tonight.
Questions? Mr. Melvin?
I'd like to thank the gentleman at All South Engineering, especially for the last slide with Bayou Vista, and of course the parish president administration has worked hard with me over the years to get this to fruition.
Mr. Araby?
Just a comment on the Alidor pump station. I hope y'all stay on top of that with DOTD, because this is a project that's been going on for quite some time now, and it's time to break the ground on this one. So appreciate what y'all can do to keep this thing rolling.
Most of the slides indicated funding sources. For the trailhead, I didn't see it, but I know it's been discussed. What's the funding source for the trailhead, Mr. President?
It's one of DOTD's trailhead
DOTD,
programs.
that's what I remember. Okay. Thank you. That's it. Thank you for your
Thank you, Mr.
presentation.
Chairman. Good evening.
Are there any other engineers and/or architects in the audience? All right, there being none, we'll move to item G, public wishing to address the council, public hearings, agenda items, et cetera. Ms. Corleen.
Miss Nancy Oden, if you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, Miss Odom, and please remember you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Nancy Oden. My address is 275 Donald Drive in Thibodaux. And I have some questions about the upcoming garbage changes for general comments. And I understand that this is supposed to show up on our water bills in January. So I'm curious as to if the contract negotiations with whatever these companies are have been completed. And if so, do y'all now know what our monthly fee will be? And if they haven't been completed, can you tell us what the current high bid or low bid is so that we'll know, have an idea? And then I know that this is labeled as a fee, but it is still, in fact, a tax. It's something that you're going to have to pay, and it is a regressive tax that people on fixed or low incomes, this fee is going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt maybe the middle class. Is there any plan to assist these people when these bills come and it may stretch their budgets a little bit? And also, because of the low turnout of the election concerning this, I really think a lot of people are going to be surprised when this shows up on their bill. Is there any plan for public notices or outreach to the public to let them know that this is going to happen before it shows up on their bill? And, will the contract with the garbage collection, is it going to include recycling for Lafourche Parish like they do in the city of Thibodaux? Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any of the answers to all those questions? I know it's a lot. I mean, we could answer it.
Miss Nancy, can I see your list of questions and I work backwards?
Yeah,
Because there's no
and-
way I'm going to remember all of
It
that.
may be, I know some of those were addressed previously, and maybe it may be better to engage her directly,
It's all right,
Mr.
I can read
President.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
the contract negotiations are all but complete. I have said it over and over in public, on the radio, on television, that the cost people will see on their water bill will be $16.50. The contract number that you guys will see, and I see you smiling because you've been telling everybody it's going to be $30, and it's not. The number in the contract is going to be about $18.20. We have enough in reserves, and we will still generate enough off the small portion of the sales tax that we're going to collect to be able to hold that $16.50 number for a very long time. As you guys will know, when the council voted on the contract back in 2019, that took effect in 2020 when we took office, there was an automatic trigger this year where we would jump from, the first 3 years were 50-cent increments. This year, it automatically jumped to CPI. So there is absolutely nothing you can do about a cost increase, right? If we were to go out to bid instead of renegotiating with the current contractor, then you might see those $25, $28, $30 numbers that some of the other parishes have seen. As I noted over and over again in the public meetings, we have a much different contract than most municipalities, including the city of Thibodaux, because our garbage contractor also owns the landfill. So when our truck gets there, there is no tipping fee that has to be paid by the garbage company because they're dumping on their own property. So that number of $16.50 will be held true. We run the numbers backwards and forwards. That number is not going to change. I will say, Miss Nancy, that I don't think the turnout was low in the election. The turnout was about 22%. The last governor's race we had, the turnout was 27%. So we were pretty darn on par with what a parish-wide election pretty well does across the parish. There will be a ton of public notices that have to go out because we should have the item to send to you guys sometime, I think maybe the second meeting in August, first meeting in September, for the actual fee numbers and the contract numbers. I don't know, I hadn't talked to Sam lately, but that last conversation we had with Gus about when they were going to send us something, but that's coming very quickly. We're going to have that worked out so that in January, everything is up to par. We've already had the discussions with the water district about how that fee is going to appear on their water bill and what, if any, additional information they would need. So we're working through that. We're going to have a lot of work to do inside the water district's software, because if you have, and I'll use you as an example, Mr. Chairman, if you have a water meter at your house, but you have a water meter for your cows, you're not going to be charged 2 garbage fees, right? So we're going to have to cull those out. If you have a second water meter that's attached to a barn or an agricultural complex, if you have a strip mall that doesn't require garbage pickup and you have a dumpster, those have to be pulled out. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, but we're going to work through that with the water district, and they've already started that. That's the other one. No, it will not. It will not include curbside recycling. We'll continue to have the bins that we have. And I still say, after working for the city of Thibodaux, the city pays an additional $3 on top of their $20-something for garbage collection for curbside recycling. And only about 30% of the city recycles. And I've always said if the other 60% knew they were subsidizing the 30%, they'd probably revolt for having to pay that extra $3. So, no, it will not.
So
Mr. Lorraine.
the cost of living comes up in January. The first 3 years, there was no cost of living involved
That's right.
with River Burge. They really messed up on that because they never thought the inflation would be like it is today. So it comes up in January, and then the main contract comes up at the end of next year. You're never going to get a contract like we got before, 15, 50, 16, 16. We had 17 right now. City of Thibodaux's at 25. Okay, right next door, right north of us.
So did you listen to anything I just said?
Yeah.
The number you're going to get is going to be in the neighborhood of $18.25. We're going to be able to subsidize it down to $16.50.
You're still going to get 3/10 of the penny that we had in 1985. We're doing it down all the way to 3/10, which is not enough to pay the garbage.
Which is why we
This is going to be, whether the people like it or not, an extra bill that they never had before. Now, you might not want to hear that, but that's what it's going to be. And what is it going to be? I have no idea, but I could tell you, Jefferson Parish just bidded out their garbage twice a week, $28 a household. Pelican just bid it out. New Iberia got the bid $30 a household once a week.
Okay, but
I
listen.
just hope it don't come to that.
You're not listening to me, Daniel. We renegotiated the contract, you're right, should expire at the end of 2024. We're doing it a year early because of all of this. The contract will be around $18.25. We don't have to rebid it. It's a professional service.
No, I know you don't have to
We
rebid
have
it.
the right to extend it.
You don't have to rebid
So
it.
when you say things like we're going to get numbers of $28 and $30, you're misleading people because we're not. The number's going to be $18.25.
I'm just making a comparison to what other parishes are doing.
But
You're not going to get a gravy train like you had before. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. You can sit up there all you want and say that, but it's not going to happen.
All right. Thank
I'm
you,
going to
Mr.
save
President.
my sons because I will bring them.
Thank you, Mr. President, for answering her questions. Ms. Carleen? Oh, okay. All right, so that's it for public wishing to address the council. We're gonna have to deviate, I'm gonna entertain a motion for that. So if, I'll entertain a motion to deviate to item, gotta keep going, it's gonna be all the way to, not K. Item L. Okay, I got a motion on the floor by Councilman Jones, second by Councilman Adams. We're gonna deviate, from the agenda to item L, public hearing and ordinances for ratification, since the others, are required and posted at 6 p.m. Second by Councilman Melvin. Everyone clear what we're doing? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, the absence being Councilman Grow. With that said, we are at item L, public hearing and ordinances for ratification. I now entertain a motion to open public hearing. So moved by Councilman Jones, second by Councilman Adams. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grow. Item 26, ordinance providing for a 2023 supplemental appropriation 23-006 within the 2023 operation and maintenance budget, correcting the drainage fund budget, amending the library budget, and establishing the opioid abatement fund, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transactions as provided for by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Moved by Councilman Jones for the administration, second by Councilman Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on item 26? Second call, public input, ordinance at item 26. Last and final call, public input, item 26. Would anyone from the council like to discuss? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grove. Item 27, ordinance approving a lease agreement between J-Bond Properties LLC and Lafourche Parish Government for a counseling service location to serve clients affected by the opioid epidemic, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any all relevant documents. Councilwoman Chesson will move on behalf of the administration, second by Councilman Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on ordinance number 27? Second call, public input, item 27. Last and final call for public input at item 27. Would anyone from the council like to discuss? Ms. Chesson?
Where will the counseling services be, do you know?
So that property's in the curve in Lockport, almost right across the street from the Lockport Heights Fire Station. We're looking at doing something in South Lafourche as well as partnering with a place up in Thibodeau. So as part of the opioid funds, part of what we've spoken with the DA and the sheriff's office about is introducing some mental health services that we know we need, as well as some transportation services to get people from South and Central Lafourche to Thibodeau for drug court that may not have the ability to get there, so they can go through the program. So this is kind of the first steps as we start to set that up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grove. Item 28, ordinance abolishing the Drainage District Number 1 and Fifth Ward Gravity Drainage District Number 5 boards within Chapter 34 of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any all relevant documents. Moved by Councilman Winter for the administration, second by Councilman Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on item 28?
Mr. Charlie Bourgeois, come to the podium, sir, state your name and address for the record. Please remember, you have 3 minutes.
Those that submitted a blue form should call out your names, and then I'll ask if anyone else that hasn't been called would like to come up and say anything.
My name's Charlie Bourgeois, 418 Rue Grand Chien, Thibodeau, Louisiana. I'm one of 3 employees with the Fifth Ward Drainage District, and I'm advocating for the Fifth Ward Board to remain in existence. The reason being that we feel that the residents of the district will be better served by doing so. We feel that we can operate cheaper than the parish by the simple fact of our manpower cost. We are strictly hourly employees with no benefits and no retirement, such as retirement and health care. I also feel that the level of maintenance will not be the same once we're gone. We have heard from many of our constituents and farmers that the canals have never looked better. Secondly, we have some major projects that are scheduled. Currently, we are doing maintenance on the canal through the proposed Edwina mitigation bank. There's also a canal on the western edge of that same mitigation bank that needs maintenance. Both are part of the Greenwood drainage system. Another project was started this past week on the adjacent mitigation bank to the east. It's being chipped by North Lafourche Levee District, and it's also part of the Greenwood drainage system. And there's another future project with the continuation of the Live Oak subdivision outfall canal. That maintenance needs to be done from the 40 Orpin Canal to the 80 Orpin Canal. And once again, I'm asking that y'all do not dissolve the Fifth Ward and allow the board to continue to manage their current funds until depleted. That's
Thank
it.
you. Anyone got any questions? Mr. Lorraine?
Yeah, can I ask you a question since you're an employee over there?
Yes, sir.
From Lafourche Crossing going to the Assumption Parish line, whatever, that's Drainage District 5, right?
Yes, sir.
308.
308 side.
Does the parish ever have some right-of-ways to dig ditches in that area? Would you know? That whole area?
We have our own right-of-ways, but as far as...
No, but what I'm asking you, did the parish ever have some right-of-ways to clean out ditches in that area? I want to make a point.
Well, I'm not sure.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah, so
Because my question would be, if they
he
do,
says he doesn't have any, he doesn't know on that one.
no, but if
Any other
they,
questions for him?
if they do, I wanted to know how many times they went and cleaned them.
Oh,
That's
Yeah, he
the point
doesn't.
I'm trying to make,
Yeah, he doesn't have that information, he said.
okay?
Any further discussion?
Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Dr. Paul Godet, if you come to the podium, Dr. Godet, state your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Godet. I live at 733 Highway 308. I've been a resident of Lafourche Parish all my life. I've lived at that address since 1976. So when this came up, I thought back over the years that I've lived there and the canals back of my home. And there's only one time I had to call the Drainage District, 5th Ward. That was after one of the hurricanes, because they came out in about 3 days. They cleaned out my canals. They took trees out, off the road, etc. But for all those 40, 45 years out there, they managed the canals. I don't have to call them. They come in, they spray the canal, they clean out the weeds. They do good maintenance, and they do it periodically. I cannot believe that if this drainage district is abolished, that the parish government is going to do such a good job. They might try, but I bet you I'll be having to call them, and I doubt if they'll come in and spray the alligator grass that clogs up the canals frequently. The drainage district has run an efficient operation. It's always run a surplus. It's recently bought an excavator, and they do an excellent job. I don't want to see something that's working be negated by a vote here tonight and replaced with something that I suspect will not work as well. For that, I ask you to defeat this, and don't do it piecemeal. Leave it run for a few months more. Just let's keep what we have. It's working. There's no reason to change. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Godet.
Godet. Mr. President?
How many canals or ditches do you have on your property, Doc?
What?
How many canals or ditches do you have on your property?
Basically just one big canal,
And how many residents does that canal serve?
2 houses.
Thank you.
But it is important for the farm. I mean, it's a sugarcane farm that we have.
Thank you, Mr. Godey. Mr. Lauren, you got
Wait,
something, Mr.
I
Godey?
need to ask you a couple of questions. That board was formed in 1968, right?
That's what I understand.
68. The people that live from 308 to the line on 308, the Lafourche Crossing, voted for that.
That's correct.
They renewed that, every 10 years it comes up for renewal. They renewed it in 2017. It really expires in 2027. But they created a new district, cut you 4 years short, like they did us. So they recalled the people's vote for 4 years. That's what they did.
You're asking Mr. Godey this, Daniel?
I'm telling him.
Well, I mean.
4 years short. Don't interfere. Don't interrupt.
No, you have all the time in the world to talk in our discussion, but I'm saying, you holding Mr. Godey right, if you got a question for him.
Yeah, well, I'm explaining to him what took place.
But what I'm saying is, we'll have a discussion period, you'll be able to talk as long as you want on the discussion period. Instead of engaging you having Mr. Godey stand up there.
Mr. Godey is in good shape.
I understand that there's many other speakers that are waiting to address the council also.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Godey, much appreciated.
Ms. Nancy Oden, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, Ms. Oden. Please remember, you have 3 minutes.
Nancy Oden, 275 Donald Drive, Thibodeau. The Fifth Ward Board got together and we sent a letter, an email to the members of the council, and I'd just like to read it to get it more or less on the public record, and then I have one question after that. So this was July 7th to the Lafourche Parish Council. Dear Lafourche Parish Council members, in light of the council's recent decision not to immediately dissolve the Fifth Ward Drainage District Number 5, we would like to propose an alternative for your consideration. We understand that the parish may currently lack the necessary staffing to effectively maintain this drainage district. Meanwhile, following the most recent council meeting, we have rehired the workers who have been responsible for maintaining this district for the past 7 years. They are experienced operators and possess unmatched and extensive knowledge about the 67 miles of drainage districts and canals in this district, drainage ditches, Out of the 3 workers, 2 have chosen not to pursue employment with the parish once the district board is dissolved. While one of them has applied for a position, the hiring process is expected to take some time. We are writing to request that the council members consider allowing the board and the employees of the Fifth Ward Drainage District to remain until the funds of the district accounts, which must be spent within the district boundaries regardless, are depleted. Barring any large, unexpected expenses at the district employee's current rate of pay, this would likely take about 2 years. By doing so, we can ensure the uninterrupted and vital maintenance work essential for proper drainage in this area. Additionally, it will provide the parish with ample time to adequately staff up in order to properly execute this crucial work once it assumes the responsibilities. Thank you for your consideration. And now
Ms. Nancy, you may submit that letter to the record if you like.
Okay, that works. And then this sort of pigtails on what you had said. I have 2 documents here that are, one, they're both dated 1987. One is both are right-of-way agreements that are in the courthouse, so they're legal documents here. Since the board has been in existence for so long, I'm curious as to whether or not, or what will happen to these right-of-ways. The Fifth Ward has the right-of-ways to maintain this drainage. If the board is dissolved, what happens to the right-of-ways? And will the parish actually have access to these ditches and canals over private property? or will all of these right-of-ways have to be renegotiated?
Thank you. So that's a legal question. I don't know if you have the answer to that or if you have to obtain that, Mr. President?
So I'll double
He's
check
gonna-
it, but
he's gonna answer you right now, the answer.
we talked about this
Yes.
during the process.
Thank you.
The Fifth Ward Board is a political subdivision of the parish. Therefore, if the board ceases to go away, the right-of-ways revert to the parish. So there's no need to go rehash all of that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Mark Nakane, you come to the podium, Mr. Nakane. State your name and address for the record, and please remember, you have 3 minutes.
I'm Mark Narcan. I live at 143 Ruth Chateau in Thibodeau. I have property in the Fifth Ward Drainage District, and what Charlie was talking about, this, the mitigation bank, we've been working with the Fifth Ward, and we had asked the parish to participate in all the meetings for over 2.5 years. An agreement was signed to close some 4 servitudes. And luckily, I had got the paperwork maybe just 3 days before it was going to be approved, where all these servitudes was going to be closed. So in negotiating in the last 2.5 years, we agreed to close 2 servitudes and keep 2 open. And there was no transparency with the parish at all to come and work with us with these servitudes and to cleaning out these ditches. And yeah, there's not really a lot of people live there, but what it does, it keeps the water off the road, just like on 308 on Doc's property. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of people living there, but it keeps the water off of Highway 308 and behind Dr. Falgood, Dr. Grafton, Mr. Kearns, and yes, there's not many people, but it keeps the water off of 308. So a lot of the water passes through these properties, but there's no one living there, but it just needs to be cleaned to keep the water off the road. So I'm in favor of keeping the Fifth Ward Drainage District, not let it go away, because they're doing a tremendous job. As somebody said in the meeting, I think it was Bo, it is on autopilot. You know, the Fifth Ward cleans all these canals. It keeps Abbey drained. Many subdivisions that goes through the fields. Got to go through the cane fields to get to the 80. And we spent millions of dollars to keep the 80 up and clean, but we couldn't get the water to it. But the Fifth Ward is doing an exceptional job of keeping all these canals clean, to keep our water running, because we got to handle all the water from Donaldsonville. So I'm in favor of, I know a lot of people got their minds set to get rid of it, but it's not a good thing. For $275,000 is our millage that they work off. If the parish takes it over, you can multiply that times 10 with the job that they're doing. So I think the people is better served if it stays in effect to 2027 like the people voted for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakan.
Mr. Errol Jeremy, if you come to the podium, Mr. Jeremy, state your name and address for the record, please. Remember, you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Errol Jeremy.
I live at 18288 Galliano, Louisiana. I'd like to address the council and to give some figures and some information that is very possible that the council members don't know about the Lafourche Parish Drainage District number 1. The Lafourche Parish Drainage District number 1 allocated $1 million for the Company Canal in the back of Gaines. That comes off Drainage District number 1. They allocated $1 million for the 20 Orphan Canal project and cutoff, which the board acquired approximately a $5.2 million grant with the state to clean the canals and bring some outfall canals all the way to the Orphan and put a pump station. Second of all, which on the West 55th Street, in Cutoff Elementary School. I'm 75 years old. I sat on the council 40 years ago. They had a problem then. They had a problem until about a year ago. Parish says, we can't do nothing about it. We ain't got no funds. Every time you go to the drainage, oh, we ain't got no funds. So, Drainage District number 1 provided $250,000 for this project, and it's been done. We've done that less than 6 months. West 17th Street, we spent $35,000 at post office changing some culverts. Behind Lafourche Furniture in the U-turn, they had a canal that was 20 feet wide, 900 feet long, no right-of-ways. Parish says, we can't do nothing about it, we can't get into it. Drainage District got a contractor, went in there, backed up on it and dug it out and cleaned it. Parish administration said, hey, can't do it, we ain't got no right-of-ways. We gave the town of Lockport approximately $300,000 for their drainage and their equipment. When's the last time that the parish gave $300,000 to the town of Lockport? Mr. Otan, you know any time?
Town of Lockport pays into Drainage District 1, sir.
Sir?
So they're entitled to that money.
Yes, I know that, but just
Well, but I mean, you're making it like that's their money.
Wait, talking about Lockport is in the parish-wide drainage
You
system
asked me a
too.
question, I'm just answering you, Errol.
Well, I'm just telling you,
Okay,
they are in the Lafourche Parish drainage system too.
yes.
So they could get some money out of the
That's right, and the parish, correct me if I'm wrong, the parish went and drained out the back canal, correct?
So
Sweep it.
as a point, Mr. Chairman, the ad valorem taxes that we're talking about for the parish-wide drainage pay the salaries and the benefits of the men and women in that field office. It does not actually go to capital construction. And anytime the town of Lockport is called and asked us to send employees, as in the last couple of months when we sent the vac truck and the culvert cleaners in there, we have.
Yeah,
Well,
they
sure,
do.
they're paying the drainage system, man. That's right.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Don't make me look bad on that because, well, I'm telling you the truth too. Town of Golden Meadow, $400,000. That's never been done by the parish administration. The town of Golden Meadow had trouble getting $100,000 that was promised to them for Hurricane Katrina. I don't know if they ever collected it or not, but they were promised that $100,000 and never collected it.
Yeah, I handed a $100,000 check to the mayor.
Well, I'm glad he
but-
did. Okay.
Okay.
But how long it took him to get it?
Oh, wow, yeah, I agree.
All right. We bought some trucks and some tractors for the Galliano barn. Approximately $320,000. Since I've been on the board, this has been 7 years ago, you know. Then we just bought a sewer and a culvert cleaner, $490,000.
I asked for one of those, I know.
All right. This comes up to an expenditure of about $4 million that the drainage, Lafourche Parish Drainage District number 1 spent in our district. And then, like I say, I don't know when administration said
and some of the meetings, the town hall meetings you had trying to pass a tax that we hoarded the money. I don't think we hoarded any money. We spent $4 million.
So how much do you have in the bank, Mr. Errol?
I can't tell you how much we got because I don't know how much expenditures we got. You look at the top number, but you don't look at the expenditures. That's another thing you don't look at.
I'm not
All right,
asking you what
I
your
want-
expenditures are. I'm asking you what your savings accounts and your
3.1 million right now.
Thank you, sir.
But we have approximately $2 million expenditure that has to be taken out of there.
Is that because the last 2 months you guys
No,
have been sending Mr. Lorraine's
No, they got
people up to the meetings?
We got $1 million for the cutoff canal. We bought.
So how many of those how many of those funds were dedicated pre the tax reform election?
Free?
Yeah.
The sewer cleaner?
Of the $2 million you just said,
The sewer cleaner?
I'm not talking about that. You said you had 3.2 in the bank and you have about 2 million of that already set. How much of that was dedicated pre-March 25th, 2023?
I have no idea. I don't have the records on that.
Thank you.
How much it is? Do you know? You should know. You asking me, why shouldn't you know?
I can tell you, you just gave 400,000 or 250 to the town of Lockport. The levy district has just asked for about $720,000. The town of Golden Meadow has come ask for several $100,000, all since the election. So
We did not give the money to the
I'm
Lafourche levy
not
district.
saying you did give it. I'm saying they're coming ask because the councilman has told them to come ask.
Well, I'm gonna put it this way. Let's look at it this way, another point you're looking at. How many council members came to our board meetings and asked for something? I can count them on this hand and I can count them on this many fingers. But every time the administration came for something, we approved what they wanted. Every time. So you want to abolish a board that's conservative and productive in our area to what? To give the money to the administration? Y'all are legislators. He's a minister. But y'all got the power to legislate, to keep the board open, and keep the board like it is. And we can, as board members, you can check up balances on our books as a councilman.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Errol. Mr. Lorraine?
Yeah, I just want to say that you create drainage districts or fire districts or whatever district, recreation districts, because the people that live there choose to pay the tax for whatever. I went to the parish many a times, couldn't get anything. I'd go sit at the drainage district and make a request. It's not my money. It's not Archie's money. It's not the council's money. It's the public's money. That was done to help people with drainage. And believe you me, Drainage District 1, Drainage District 5 has done a lot for the Lafourche Parish residents. Drainage 6 can't even get a board. They have no funding. Sure, you want to combine 5, 1, and 6. All it is, and I'll tell you, I'm not afraid to tell you, it was a money grab of the administration. That's it. They call the shots after. Case closed. That's what it boils down to.
Yes,
And the people that voted for this had 4 years left. Their votes got recalled.
Thank you. Mr.
Well, I
Adams?
thank you for your time.
Mr. Adams has something, Mr. Errol.
I actually have a question. So my question is, you said you spent $4 million over how many years?
7 years.
7 years. Okay, thank you. I didn't hear how many years. Thank
7
you.
years.
Because I had a
And
question.
we collect about, sometimes 250, sometimes it depends on for the hurricanes, 200,000,
So,
250,000,
4 million.
400,000 a year. We're very conservative.
So you spent
board.
4
That's why
million.
we got that kind of-
My question was, you spent $4 million over 7 years. That was it.
and-
That's what you spent.
and-
That's it. That's good. Thank you.
And to say this over here, and part, why we got this money ahead of us, it's emergencies, dude. You know, if a hurricane.
Errol, you must have got, you say in 7 years, you must have got on right when the first board meeting I went to. You sure it's only 7 years you've been on that board?
Yeah.
Must have been
You're
one of the
8 years you're on the council.
Must have been right first meeting. You're throwing that number 7, I'm like, dang, that's the first meeting I went to, you were there. So you must have just become a commissioner.
Well, anyway.
All right, thank you,
Well, I
Errol.
sure appreciate y'all
Yeah.
consider this, and keeping the board like it is. We're doing a good job. And we do this for nothing. In fact, it costs us money out of our pocket to serve on these boards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms.
President?
Deb,
Mr. President,
Oh, go ahead, Terry.
I just want to let Errol know I've been just serving on this board about 2 years now that I've been elected, and I have been to y'all meetings and got some money from y'all. Thank you.
Ms. Debbie Melvin, if you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, Mrs. Melvin. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
My name is Debbie Melvin. I live at 322 Cedar Tree Drive in Thibodaux as part of District 5 drainage. I have called each of you, with the exception of Mr. Lorraine, because I talked with him at the last meeting. But I have called each of you, and I just want to say how much I appreciate you being candid with me, you being honest with me. Some of you I sent text messages to because I didn't get a return phone call. But those of you that I did speak to, I learned a lot from. And I appreciate you being honest with me. I just want to say that first and foremost. I have lived here for about 45 years. I worked for the LSU Ag Center for 36 years. We had farmers in and out of our offices. And you may wonder, well, what does that have to do with the drainage district and why am I here? I think I have been consistent in the times that I have come up and spoken with you guys. And it has always concerned our drainage. I spoke up at one of the public forums about the tax because I called the parish office and I got an explanation of what each one of those taxes meant. And the one that concerned me the most had to do with District 5 drainage. It was a very difficult and convoluted tax proposition, all 6 of them together, and for our residents not to understand them. Even though the public meetings were held, I watched them online, I watched them in person, and I even talked to one of the parish employees who explained every one of them to me. And it was very, very complex. And people were told, just vote for all 6. Just, it's all got to work together for the teachers to get a raise. So everybody voted for all 6, or the majority did, except for the one that had to do with the District 5 drainage. Our district voted to keep our drainage district. You know why? Because they maybe understood that part of it. And like someone said, it's not broken. It's not something that needed to be fixed. We don't even understand why it became a part of these tax propositions. The people who worked in the drainage district didn't know it was coming. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm a resident, and I've always cared about the flooding issue that we have where I live. When Michael Groh would come and see what was happening after a big rain, he could see that our street was flooded. But you know what? These guys, if they're not allowed to maintain that back there, it's just going to get worse.
Thank you, Ms. Melvin.
So, one last thing. My suggestion is, Ms. Nancy has talked to y'all about projecting the expense based on previous expenditures from our district. Project how long it's going to take for us to run out of money that we alone voted for and paid for. Wait until that at least is done. Project it and set a sunset date with those things in mind.
Thank you, Ms.
Please.
Melvin. So we're at a point where we're going to have to hold off on this and actually deviate back to the 6 p.m. because we have it posted at 6 p.m. in the middle of the vote. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong? So we'll have to deviate from further discussion. I know there's another person waiting to speak. Yeah. All right. So with that said, we're going to, in between this motion, I know it's kind of weird because we still have a motion on the floor. but it's gonna take us some time, I think, to resolve it. So with that said, I got a motion on the floor by Councilman Wendell, that we deviate from the agenda, and go outside of the public hearing, outside of, the regular public hearing, to go into the specialized and return back to item H. Is that your, motion? Second by Councilman Melvin. Any discussion on that issue? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absence being Councilman Grove. I do apologize, but we have a 6 p.m. public hearing that we do have to, address. With that said, item H, 2023, millages, public hearing and public meeting at 6 p.m. I entertain a motion to open public hearing, public meetings for the 2023 millages. So moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, the absence being Councilman Grove. Item 4, discussion to levy, not rolling forward, 2023 millage rates for the following: recreational facilities, public buildings, library 017, library 014, general alimony, criminal tax, health unit, fire protection district number 7, council on aging, health and library, in lieu of millage. Am I missing something? Is that it? That's it. Okay. So now I will entertain a motion to close that public hearing and public meetings for the 2023 millages. So moved by Councilwoman Chesson, second by Councilman Adams. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. That absence being Councilman Grove. Item I, public hearing and public meeting and ordinances for ratification. Just to be clear, there will be a voice roll call vote that has to be taken on each ordinance. And then on the final signed copy of each ordinance, each council member's name shall be noted as to which way they voted next to the yeas, nays, abstain, and or absent. With that said, I will now entertain a motion to open the public hearing and public meeting. So moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grove. Item 5, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche recreational facilities. Moved by Councilman Adams for the administration, second by Councilman Jones. So this is just straight voice. You want me to call out each name? Okay. Make it easy, right? All right, here we go. Councilman Jones. Yay. Councilman Adams. Councilwoman Chesson. Councilman Otan, yay. Councilman Grove will be noted as absent. Councilman Melvin.
Yay.
Councilman Wendell. Councilman Araby. Councilman Lorraine. You said yay, right, Ms. Lorraine? Yeah, he said yay. So that ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, absence being Councilman Grove. Item 6, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche public buildings. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Voice roll call. Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otan, yay. Councilman Grove is absent. Councilman Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. That ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grove. Item 7, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Library 017. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. That said, we'll go voicemail call, roll call. Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Yes. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Oten will be yea. Mr. Grove is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. That ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grove. Item 8, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Library 014. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call. Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Yay. Ms. Chesson. Yay. Mr. Otan, yay. Mr. Grove's absence. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. That ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Mr. Grove. Item 9, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche general alimony. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call. Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Yay. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otan, yay. Mr. Grove is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grove. Item 10, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation, the Parish of Lafourche criminal tax. Mr. Adams for administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Vote 10 yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Abstain. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention, that abstention being Mr. Wendell, and 1 absent, that absent being Mr. Grow. Good, Ms. Carly?
Yes, sir.
Item 11, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche Health Unit. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Vote 10 yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grow. Item 12, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche Fire Protection District Number 7. Mr. Melvin for the administration, second by Mr. Wendell. Roll call, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Vote 10 yes. Mr. Grow is absent. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grow. Item 13, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche Council on Aging, moved by Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Vote 10 yes. Mr. Grow is absent. Melvin.
Yes.
Wendell. Araby. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grow. Item 14, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche Health and Library. Mr. Adams for the administration, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Second by Mr. Jones. Roll call. Mr. Jones has a yea. Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Grow, O10 is yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absent being Councilman Grow. Item 15, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche in lieu of millage. Mr. Adams for administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yay.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. O10 will be yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yay.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes, ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grow. Now to entertain a motion to close public hearing and public meeting, so moved by Councilman Jones, second by Councilman Adams. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, absent being Councilman Grow. Item J, 2023 millages, public hearing and public meeting at 6 p.m. I now entertain a motion to open a public hearing and public meetings for 2023 millages, so moved by Mr. Melvin, second by Mr. Wendell. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absence being Councilman Grow. Item 16, discussion to levy rolling forward 2023 millage rates for the following: recreational facilities, public buildings, library 017, library 014, general alimony, criminal tax, health unit, fire protection district number 7, and council on aging. Discussion?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, real quick, I know we got an email stating that some of these are roll forwards, and that because of an amendment that didn't pass, can you please explain that, why they have to roll forward? Are they going to lose it?
Yeah, so,
Mr. President.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So every 4 years is a reassessment year. If for some reason a board, or in our case, all of these, that we did not collect the maximum over that 4-year period, if you don't, then you lose the ability. So for round number purposes, if the maximum millage on recreational facilities is 5 mills, the last 3 years we've only collected 3, and we keep it at 3, then we lose the ability to ever go back to 5 should we need it. The assessor had a constitutional amendment on last year's ballot that would have changed the shall that we have to a may. That would have not forced us to roll forward every 4 years to keep the maximums. That constitutional amendment failed, I think because the majority of the people didn't understand what it was trying to do. So now we're stuck because that constitutional amendment failed. We were kind of waiting to see what would happen with that in the hopes it would pass and never have to roll any of these things forward again. But to keep the ability to keep the maximums, you have to roll forward.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we clarify for those at home and whatnot.
Yeah, when it's rolling forward is no higher than what the people originally voted on. So you have the ability to roll back. Unfortunately, and it's a state statute, it's not local. So, Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, if you look at page 2 Item number 4, discussion to levy not rolling forward 223 millage rates for the following. And it tells you, recreation, public library, the whole 9 yards. Then you come to page 4, number 16, it says discussion to levy rolling forward. One tells you not rolling forward, and this one tells you rolling forward. Look at number 4, page 4. Look at number 16. But go to page 2 and look at number 4, what it tells you. It tells you not rolling forward. And then the same bunch, 2 pages later, it tells you rolling forward. So, you talk about confused. I don't know.
Okay.
It's in black and white, it's right here.
Okay. Any further discussion before we go to a vote? Go ahead, Ms.
I
Renita.
can answer the reason why. You would need to have a tax put in place. Therefore, that's why we have it to not to roll forward, which would be to stay the same. If you vote yes, that means that will be in effect. When you go to rolling forward, which is the next section that we're about to talk about, discuss, then if you do approve it, then this one here would supersede the current tax. But we have to put something in place in the event that you don't want to roll forward. We still have to approve to at least collect the current tax. And
great.
that's why it's duplicated.
Thank you, Ms. Renita.
I'm just totally confused because I understand what you're saying, but in one hand, you're telling not to roll forward, and the other hand, you're telling them to roll forward.
Yeah, it's only if it fails on this one, you have to have something to fall back on. It's really just common sense. Okay, any further discussion? With that said, we'll move this to a vote, which, okay, yeah, all right. I entertain a motion to close public hearing and public meetings for 2023 millages before we move to them. So moved by Councilwoman Chesson, second by Councilman Adams. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. Absent being Councilman Grove. Now, item K, public hearing and public meeting and ordinances for ratification. A voice roll call vote must be taken on each ordinance, and on a final signed copy of each ordinance, each council member's name shall be noted as to which way they voted next to the yeas, nays, abstain, or absent. So now I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing and public meetings. So moved by Councilwoman Chesson, second by Councilman Adams. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. The absence being Councilman Grove. Item 17, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the properties subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche recreational facilities rolling forward. Moved by Councilman Adams for the administration, second by Councilman Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Both hands yea. Mr. Groh is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Ordinance passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. That absence being Councilman Groh. Item 18, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the properties subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche, public buildings rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otans, yea. Mr. Groh is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. You voting for, or yea or nay, sir? Yes. So yea for Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. Absent being Councilman Grove. Item 19, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the properties subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche. Library 017, rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otans, yea. Mr. Groh is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 7 yeas, 1 nay, that nay being Mr. Lorraine, 1 absent, that absent being Mr. Grove. Item 20, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the Parish of Lafourche. Library 014, rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otans, yea. Mr. Grove is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. We're not discussing, it's just simply a vote,
I'm
yea or
gonna
nay.
discuss it, it's a 1 mil increase.
Yea.
That's terrible.
Yea-
No.
Yea or nay? So it's a nay, motion passes with 7 yeas, 1 One nay, that nay being Mr. Lorraine, one absent, that absent being Mr. Grow. Item 21, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, general alimony rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otenz, yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absent being Mr. Grow. Item 22, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, criminal tax rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otenz, yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Wendell abstains. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 7 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention, that abstention being Mr. Wendell, and 1 absent, that absent being Mr. Grow. Okay, thank you, Ms. Carleen. Number 23, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the properties subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Health Unit rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Rotan is a yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absence being Mr. Grow. Item 24, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Fire Protection District Number 7, rolling forward. Mr. Melvin for the administration, second by Mr. Wendell. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otenz, yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absent being Councilman Grow. Item 25, ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2023 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Council on Aging, rolling forward. Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Roll call vote, Mr. Jones.
Yea.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Chesson. Mr. Otenz, yea. Mr. Grow is absent. Mr. Melvin.
Yea.
Mr. Wendell. Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine. Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absent being Councilman Grow. I now entertain a motion to close public hearing and public meetings. So moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilwoman Chesson. Want to recess? Yeah. So at this time, we have a motion for a eight-minute, we're gonna have to deviate back. Right now, we got an 8-minute recess, motion on the floor by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any nays? Motion passed with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, absent being Councilman Grow. To resume agenda, so moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, absent being Councilman Grow. Now I will entertain a motion to deviate back to item 28 in L, public hearing and ordinances for ratification. So moved by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absent being Councilman Grow. We are at item 28. I will reread the ordinance, just for clarification. We are on ordinance abolishing the drainage district number 1 in the 5th Ward gravity drainage district number 5 boards within chapter 34 of the Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. This was moved by Mr. Wendell for the administration and second by
Mr. Adams.
Mr. Adams. And we were in discussion, and we still had a few more public wishing to address the council. So at this time, Ms. Carleen, please continue.
Yes, sir. Ms. Claire Lejeune, if you come to the podium, Ms. Claire, state your name and address for the record. Please remember you have 3 minutes.
My name is Claire Lejeune. I live at 420 Cedar Tree Drive in 12 Cedar Subdivision. I would like to say that my husband and I are here in complete support of Ms. Debbie, who spoke with you earlier, and she is the one who has kind of given us a little more education as to what's going on. I just have a few brief comments. I just want to mention that the tax money that was put into having the extra amounts that are for District 5 have been paid by all of the people living in that parish for their areas. I would also like to say that the District 5, over the past 7 years, which the gentleman mentioned, that's how long, this group has been together, have made dramatic improvements and used the money very wisely. We've been living here 21 years. Prior to that, every time there was heavy rain, the back section would flood. There were times when you'd have to go 2 miles an hour in order to get to your home. There were also times in that time period, almost every time it rained heavy, that the bathrooms in our home would come up very high, and we would have to be very, very cautious. And then once they began some of this construction with the new equipment that was purchased and all of the work that was done, we have never had that problem again. So we, of course, are very concerned that there would be a change in who's handling it. Also that, because this money was paid with taxes from all the people living in that specific area that will be affected, we would like to have past expenditures evaluated to see about what it costs, and while that money is still there, to please continue to use that money in the same way so we can have the same results. And that's all I would like to mention to you and ask for you today.
Thank you, Ms. Claire. Okay, that's the last one. With that said, I will ask if anyone else is interested in addressing the council, even though you can fill out a blue form, you're more than welcome to speak on this ordinance. No, ma'am, you've already discussed. We don't want to keep this going. I thank you. I think you've already spoken to all of us, and really good discussions, too. Thank you, Ms. Melvin. Yeah, and then I know Brian has his hand up also. So, yes, sir, you can come up. You have to come to the mic. Just state your name and your address for the record so we can catch it on the recording.
My name's Mitch Bourgeois, 504 Highway 308, Thibodeau. I'd like to follow up on what Doc said. The landowners aren't our real priority. The subdivision, the houses are our priority. When Fifth Ward was created, there were no subdivisions, basically. I mean, not that I'm aware of. The early ones came in, were done in the 70s. Fifth Ward was created in the 60s. So it was a lot of just landowners. So there were no subdivisions back then. And for us for digging one ditch and not digging the other one, if it can't go down one, it's going to go down another one. It's going to find a way, and it just puts more pressure on adjacent ditches. So to say you're not going to dig one guy's ditch because he's a doctor, but you're going to let that water go horizontally to get to a subdivision or something, I just don't think it's right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask
Mr.
a
President?
question? So, Mr. Bourgeois, in all those years since all those subdivisions created, how many times has the Fifth Ward Gravity Drainage District gone into a subdivision, blown out a culvert, dug a residential ditch, or done any work inside any of those residential subdivisions that are paying taxes?
Well, everybody pays taxes, the doctors do.
No, I'm
But
talking about
we don't do ditches. We take care of outfall lines only.
Is that specifically in your tax call that you only take care of outfall ditches, or are you a
Since
drainage
I've been
district?
here, that's all we've ever done. I've been here 8 years, and all we do, when the subdivisions move back, we move back. Y'all take it. Well, like half the Oaks, when they added on to it, we moved back.
But you collect a tax from those taxpayers.
We still draining behind them. We still getting their water.
But you get where you see the point I'm trying to correlate here.
You collected money too. I mean, we collected a little money. Y'all collected a little bit. We did part of it. You do part of it. I don't understand your question.
I'm saying, and I'm going to say this for Mr. Earl's drainage district too, is that you guys created a drainage district. You collect tax money from those people, but you shed their drainage responsibility to the parish because you didn't want to maintain it. But now all you guys are going to stand up here and bash our employees and bash us.
I'm not bashing your employees.
That we're not going to take care of it as good as you guys. We have you guys are really good operators. I'm not going to knock you. But we have some of the best operators and some of the most talented people in this parish working for us. And to think that we're not going to maintain it as well as you guys, when you guys have shed this responsibility on the subdivision side for all these years, but continue to maintain the tax. So what my point is that I think that when you look at the voter turnout, when you look at who went vote, you'll understand why it failed in that district, because it was a majority of the large landowners that you guys cater to. It's not the residential.
It didn't fail in our district. It did not fail.
Hold on.
That's why it.
No, yeah, I just
That's why
want
the
the audience.
proposition failed to pass in that particular drainage district, right? Because the vast majority of people in that district don't realize what they're paying a tax for, right?
It did not fail in our district. Fifth Ward, they approved it. Everybody that was in Fifth Ward approved it.
No, what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the tax reform package.
So was he. That was people from down here voting to get rid of our drainage.
I'm saying the people specifically inside, and you guys noted it the last time you were here, that the people within the Drainage District Number 5 voted against the tax proposition. But when you look at those numbers are very small compared to the actual people in that district.
I don't understand your question. They did vote to keep it. Fifth Ward voters voted to keep Drainage District Number 5 within Fifth Ward. It's the people outside of Fifth Ward voted to get rid of it.
But what I'm saying, Mr. Bourgeois, is that if you look at the boxes themselves inside those districts, those boxes, the proposition failed, right? They did not want to consolidate. But when you look at the number of votes cast, it's drastically lower than the people who actually live in the district. There's some 7,000 probably registered voters that could have went vote. I think when you look at those numbers, only a couple hundred of them went vote.
I don't think they really
What I'm saying is voter turnout was very low.
They really didn't know about it. We found out 6 weeks before the election.
I would ask
think
everyone
that's
in the
part of the
audience, please
reason
show
why
some respect to the guy at the mic. Y'all show him some respect.
So,
Thank you.
anyway,
Understood, Mr.
that-
Bourgeois.
that's all I had to say. I mean, I'd like to, the fact that there were no subdivisions when this thing got started. All these new subdivisions are tying into stuff that we've been digging since the 60s. So just because there may not be a subdivision there now, I think we have like 16 subdivisions that are in our district. And every one of them is tying into something we've dug. And we don't do any streets. We don't do anything in the forward. We all on the backside. When the subdivision's in is where we start.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Mr. Melvin, you got something, Mr. Bourgeois?
I was just gonna wait until general comments from us.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Is that it?
Bourgeois.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Is that it? Oh, Mr. Martz. Just remember, Brian, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Brian Martz. I live at 625 West 13th Street, La Rose, Louisiana. I currently serve as the chairman of Drainage District Number 1, Lafourche Parish. I also serve on Lafourche Levy District. I think right now, I am the longest tenured member on Drainage District Number 1. When I became a board member on that board, there were most of those gentlemen are no longer with us.
That's not good.
And in the years that I've been on that drainage board, we've done, I think, as Drainage District Number 1 has done an extraordinary job in upgrading and maintaining the drainage and working along with Public Works and the Parish Council throughout portion of District 6, 7, 8, and 9 to improve the drainage in those areas. Basically what we do, we fund a lot of projects that Public Works, they come and they'll ask, well, look, we need some help with this. Can you do this for us? Would you help us? Would you purchase some equipment? And I think in the past, I would say 7 to 8 years, we've bought numerous boom tractors. We've bought excavators. We've bought drain cleaners. We've bought tree shredders to clean, because there's, in Drainage District Number 1, there's, I would imagine, hundreds of outfall canals that we have to get the water. The job of us is to get the water from Bayou Lafourche all the way to the outfall canals, where the parish and then also South Lafourche Levy District can pump the water out. So I think we've done a good job, and I think we would continue to do a good job if we were allowed to remain and not abolished. I understand, that the parish moving forward, they're trying to streamline things and being able to better serve the whole parish as a whole. But I think that, the money that's remaining in Drainage District Number 1, the residents in that district, you know, deserve to have the services that they've paid for. And me as being the chairman, I would like to continue that for as long as we can, or for as long as we're allowed to. And like I said, I'm proud to be able to serve on that board. It's something that we do voluntarily. We don't get paid to do it, like you say, and I've learned a lot through the years dealing with public works, and then also coming from a construction background. I've traveled up and down the parish, and even right now, there's a tremendous need for its infrastructure, for its drainage. We have a lot of ditches, we have a lot of rotten culverts in the system that need improving. And like I said, I would appreciate if y'all consider not abolishing our board and allowing us to continue to operate as we have in the past. Thank you.
I got one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Lorraine.
Brian, you're the president of the Drainage District 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Didn't y'all recently pass a resolution not to abolish Drainage District 1, the board?
Yes, sir.
You got seven members on that board.
Yes, sir.
And they all voted for it, but one, but he wasn't there,
Yes, sir. There was one.
right?
Yes.
So that should tell some of these councilmen something, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, I've been to y'all many a times,
Yes, sir.
many
And
a time.
I mean, Councilman Arabi, Councilman Otan, Councilwoman Chancellor, and also you. Every time, you know, I said his name first.
When he first got elected, he went for $50,000 to do a project not far from where we at right now,
Yes, sir.
and y'all gave it to him.
Yes, sir.
Yo, I never seen y'all refuse anybody.
We've done everything that we could within our
Legally.
power that we were allowed to do.
Right.
Now, some people, we can't help everybody.
Right.
Because of the ordinances and you know, for different reasons.
But the
So
most
in those cases, we'll go to the district attorney's office and we'll get an opinion.
The most-
Sometimes we can help people, sometimes we can't.
one of the most important things is y'all are very conservative with money, and I've seen
I wouldn't
it.
say we're conservative with money.
You don't waste it.
We've spent according to our budget. Every year we have a budget. The thing that I would say that we were good stewards with our money. We collected money, and we're not conservative, but we're good stewards of our money, and I've learned that from previous board members. Whereas we had money, and then even the years like these past few years, due to the hurricane, we had a reduction in our tax collection, and we were still able to spend more money than we collected because we were good stewards with our money, and we have money that we have, actually we have invested money, and our money grew. You know, in the past years that we had, I think when I got on the board, we may have had, it was less than $2 million. It was $1.something million, and now we have approximately, right now as of the last meeting, it was $3.5 million.
Mr. Lorraine?
The most important thing out of all this is, and I've seen many of them, because I've been here a long time, when hurricanes hit, they come to Drainage District 1 quick, but you have the funding to address the problem. So if you turn this loose to the parish, it's going to be hard to find some, I can tell you that. The more money you give to a politician, the more you're going to spend.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Mr. Adams?
I have a question. So let's just say the hurricane does come. It hits District 5. Can District 1 go help? Exactly. But if the parish down the bayou in Galliano or the Galliano office can come and help the North Lafourche people, y'all can't.
All right. You still waiting to the general discussion, Melvin?
No, I'm
You got
just
something for Mr. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your years of service to our community. Much appreciated. Anyone else from the public would like to comment on this ordinance? Last call, probably about 10 calls, last calls. All right, with that said, we'll move it to the council. Mr. Melvin.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate the input. People have a vested interest, and I find that we all live here, but I know that there's different beliefs on how we need to accomplish things, but I'll just try to be brief as possible. Number one, I don't know if these two items should be on the same, these two boards should be on the same agenda items, even though they involve sort of the same thing. We hear things that might be issues on some boards, whether it's these two or some other boards that may have some challenges, or it could all just be hearsay. But if there's any problems on boards, those boards should have either been replaced or maybe, and that's any board in the parish, if there's a problem, investigate it, okay? I'm not casting aspersions on either one of these, but the people spoke. The boards will eventually, whether it's tonight or another time, be dissolved or run out of money. So I know it adds insult to injury to some of the folks who are losing their boards, and I just don't see why, under God's good earth, that these people are just asking to run out of money. If they're mismanaging it, we can make a change. If it's not broke, don't fix it. We've heard that. Right now, I've never gotten a call. I've been in this chair, it's my second term. I've never gotten a call from Fifth Ward, ever. But I know some of these folks don't have a drainage district in their place. But I'm going to get calls, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of calls. And look, administrations come and administrations go. So I think that was an unfair question posed to the gentleman, that I don't think he was insulting this administration. I think they do a good job. But who's going to say who's in administration 10 years from now, when I'm not in this chair or they're not in that chair, right? Because these folks are still going to be living in their homes, and the effects of this whole item and everything around it, we're not going to see for a little while, okay? But apparently, either good or bad, we're going to have good or bad consequences of these decisions. So, again, there's a lot of agriculture in these areas. It's kept up well. I think it's worked out well. And again, it's a matter of time either way. The rush to abolish, if somebody's wasting money, or if there's some questions or concerns, again, that can be dealt with on a board basis. And again, I'm against this. And as far as abolishing it tonight or going forward, I'd like to see them run out of money. Because look, I know no matter what the administration, councilmen in these positions with these boards that are being abolished are going to be getting more calls than they've ever gotten. And that's just one less headache that we don't need, because it seems like they're functioning okay. So, again, thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Adams.
Okay, again, like I was saying a minute ago, my thing is if Fifth Ward has an issue, who can help? If the Fifth Ward district has an issue and they're overrun and water's coming in everywhere, who can help them? You. If Ward 1 has a problem, who's going to help them? Again, y'all can't help each other. Restrictions. That's the whole problem with it. That's my whole problem with this whole thing. There's too many restrictions. That's why I want to abolish it and make it one. So that way, if somebody needs help in Ward 1, the parish does it, it moves it on. We have the manpower to help. That's my one thing. And again, I understand the fact that y'all didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for the governor. I didn't vote for the president. The rest of the country did. The rest of the state did. I have to live with it. I understand that because I don't like it. Again, the public voted for it. They want to demolish it, abolish it. I have to do what my constituents voted for. And I am going to abolish it.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Any further discussion? Mr. Lorraine.
First of all, I'm going to start off by saying, listening to this, the guy that was up there about the taxes. You have a parish-wide drainage tax that y'all pay, and you have a drainage district tax that you pay. The reason why that was created years ago was to assist some of the problems. read the tax code. It's conditioned upon the vote of the council. Now the people voted for it, but I think it was an unfair election because the people that created District 5 voted to do it, and then everybody else went vote, and they cut them 4 years. If they'd have done this in 2027, I wouldn't be for it, but I wouldn't have a problem with it because it would expire. Same thing down the bayou. And I'm going to tell you, it should have been 2 elections. It should have been when the people voted in District 5 if they wanted to consolidate. If they'd have said yes, then you come back with another election and you put everything together. My suggestion is the Drainage District Board needs to go to the Attorney General and the Louisiana State Auditor. Let's see what they're going to say. That's just my opinion. Nobody has taken it up the ladder. It's just not right what was done. The school board one, I didn't like it because I didn't want to take the garbage money, but it was done right. The Drainage District one and the road tax ones was not done right. The people that lived there chose to pay that tax. So how come the other people that don't live there came and vote the way they wanted? They killed it in their district. We killed it in South Lafourche. You know who passed it? Central Lafourche. Because they had a tax break and nobody else really had one. I'm telling you, I've been there a long time. I know what took place, and I've heard it from some of the people that spoke. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. And I got this to say. I'm going to end with this. The parish cannot keep up with what they have today with drainage. There is no way. They try. I'm going to say they try, but they can't do it. So you're telling me you're going to take over 5 and 1, and you're going to finish doing what you were doing before, and you're going to keep everything up? It's not going to happen. It will not happen. Example, all kind of boat companies down the bayou. You know, you get some boats that are tied up because they can't crew them. We got a bunch of beautiful equipment at the parish. They got more equipment now than they ever had. When I first started, we hardly had anything. It got better and better and better over the years. Okay, more taxes, more better, got better. They ain't got the employees to put all this equipment to work today. They don't have it. So what good is an excavator sitting there with nobody running it? And then they want you to come work for the parish? Well, if you're digging ditches in that area and they need a grass cutter in Region Airborne, guess where that guy's going tomorrow? He's going to cut some grass. Think about it. Look at the whole picture. Don't just look at, oh, because he got it, I want it, he got. None of this is our money. It's not mine. It's not the administration. It's the taxpayers. I just think they got the wool pulled over their eyes. And they're going to find out in the long run, because some of them good, clean ditches you got are not going to stay clean very long. Remember that.
Okay, Mr. Melvin, you have a follow-up?
Look, yes, sir, just real quick. I know Mr. Adams has a very challenging district. He has the most pumps, and not through any fault of his or anybody on this board, but he'd probably have less of a headache if they had a drainage district, because it'd be like on autopilot if it was run like these. But I'll say this, moving forward, I want it part of the record. Why in the future would anybody in this parish moving forward vote for themselves a millage in their district when the rest of the parish can take the damn thing?
So
Thank you.
I'll just say that, just remember on property millages, you can actually vote on it without paying into it. Because if you're homestead exempt, you don't pay a penny. So just remember that. It's not necessarily, I understand what you're saying. Remember, it's businesses that pay the majority of the millage. And I just want to correct Mr. Lorraine when he says Central Lafourche doesn't benefit from, we're getting a tax break. So my entire district pays into Drainage District number 1. I just remember that. When you said Central Lafourche, you said Central Lafourche.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You got a half cent instead of a penny, and I rolled it to a half cent on the road tax.
You're talking about roads.
Right.
I'm talking about drainage.
I rolled it back 15 years ago. They're way late, these guys.
Right, but you mentioned drainage, and
Well,
and
that's-
my area does pay in the Drainage District
Right.
1, Central Lafourche.
But
So,
the ones
I
that
just
pay
want
the
to correct-
tax,
I just want to correct.
listen, the one that pays the tax, you're right. But you know what they do? They recoup their money from somewhere.
Yeah.
The poor guy on the street.
Thank you. The only other thing I want to say is I will remain committed, as I have since this vote took place, and the people have spoken, that I am committed to having the drainage districts exist to the end of this year, and I will vote. And I just want to make sure that we're clear, this ordinance doesn't go into effect until December 31st of 2023, the end of the year. Is that correct, Mr. President?
That's right, Mr. Chairman. I also want to reiterate something is Mr. Lorraine keeps talking about this as a money grab, right? Regardless of what cash anybody has in the bank, and I've said this over and over, I've said it at all the public meetings, those dollars still have to be spent within those districts. I can't take anything from Drainage District number 1 and bring it to Councilman Jones' district, just like I can't take anything from Fifth Ward and Councilman Adams' district and bring it to Mr. Araby's district. It's not the way this is gonna work. And regardless of whether you believe, in Mr. Melvin's case, that the board should run out, right? Whether that's, based on their financials, let's say there's round numbers, right? They have $800,000 in the bank, they spend $200,000 a year, right? Whether it's 4 years or 6 months, at some point, the parish still has to take this over, right? Because of the election vote. So, it's six one way, half a dozen of the other, whether they run the money in the clock out, and again, Fifth Ward is a different animal than Drainage number 1, because they have employees, they have machinery. District 1 is really just a fund to do projects, right? There is no real admin behind it. So, there you go.
All right, thank you. With that said, we're going to now move this to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes, raise your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Nays, raise your hand. So the motion will fail by 4 yeas being Councilman Wendell, Councilman Otan, Councilman Adams, Councilman Jones, and nays being Councilwoman Chesson, Councilman Melvin, Councilman Araby, and Councilman Lorraine. With that said, motion fails 4 yeas to 4 nays, and 1 absent being Councilman Grow. All right, moving on.
Got one follow-up.
With that said, item 29, ordinance approving a non-warranty cash sale agreement for property adjudicated to Lafourche Parish Government located at 107 Myrtle DeLone Street, Lockport, Louisiana, 70374. Assessment number 0041449836 for a minimum starting bid of $5,620 and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said cash sale and any all relevant documents. Ms. Chesson will move on behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on ordinance number 29? Please show some respect. If there's anyone, y'all are welcome to leave. I know most of y'all were here for that one. Y'all can absolutely leave with no problem. I know it's been a long meeting already. I'm sure many of us would like to leave. I'll wait a second if y'all do want to. With that said, as I stated, if anyone from the public is interested in discussing ordinance number 29, second call, anyone from the public, ordinance number 29, last call, public. Would anyone from the council like to discuss item number 29? There being none, we'll move it to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. Item 30, ordinance approving a non-warranty cash sale agreement for a property adjudicated to Lafourche Parish Government located at 2237 Highway 308, Thibodaux, Louisiana, 70301, assessment number 00528333700 for a minimum starting bid of $5,620 and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said cash sale and any all relevant documents. Moved by Mr. Adams for the administration, second by Mr. Jones. Would anyone from the public like to comment on ordinance number 30? Second call, public input, item 30. Last and final call, anyone from the public like to comment on item 30? Anyone from the council? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passed with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, the absent being Councilman Grow. Item 31, ordinance amending and reenacting Chapter 22 of the Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances as it pertains to land development and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Ms. Chesson will move on behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on ordinance number 31? Second call, public, ordinance 31. Last and final call, item 31. Anyone from the council? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. Item 32, ordinance providing for a 2023 supplemental appropriation 23-010 within the 2023 operations and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget, increasing the budget to include the CWEF funding and increase for the Valentine Pontoon Bridge, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transactions as provided for by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. So moved by Councilwoman Chesson for the administration, second by Mr. Adams. Would anyone from the public like to comment on item 32? Second call, public input on item 32. Last and final call for item 32, public input. But anyone from the council? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passed with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. Item 33, ordinance providing for a 2023 supplemental appropriation 23-011 within the 2023 operations and maintenance budget, increasing the budget for the 2023 courthouse security, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transactions as provided for by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Mr. Melvin will move on Mr. Grove's behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Araby. Would anyone from the public like to comment on item 33? Second call, public input, item 33. Last and final call, public input on item 33. Anyone from the council? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. I'll now entertain a motion to close public hearing. So moved by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passed with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. And now I can turn it over to you, Ms. Chesson. Item M, proposed ordinances.
You don't get that much of a break. 34, proposed ordinance, amending and reenacting Chapter 2 of the Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances as it pertains to administration, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Mr. Otan for administration. 35, proposed ordinance accepting the subdivision known as Field Chase Subdivision Phase A into the parish system. Mr. Otan for administration. 36, proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 6733 that adopted the 2023 operations and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget for Lafourche Parish Council, as well as setting the salaries of unclassified employees as provided for by Article 5 of Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Mr. Otan for administration. 37, proposed ordinance granting a variance from Lafourche Parish subdivision regulations from installation of a fire hydrant in the proposed Zachary P. Leeret family subdivision as not recommended by Lafourche Parish Planning Commission at their June 29, 2023 meeting. Mr. Adams for administration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chesson. Brings us to item N, resolutions. My understanding, item 38 is polled. Brings us to item 39, resolution reappointing one member on the Fire Protection District Number 8-C Board. And Mr. Thibault, who do you have?
I have Adley Pelche.
Mr. Adley Pelche, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absent being Councilman Grow. Item 40, resolution reappointing one member to the Fire Protection District Number 1 Board. Mr. Melvin for the administration. Who do you have, Mr. Melvin?
Yeah, reappointment of Mr. Conrad Hart.
Contractor services relative to private property nuisance abatement of condemned structures to proceed with demolition and debris removal 23-094.7 and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Ms. Chesson will move on my behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absent. That absent being Councilman Grow. Item 42, resolution accepting the low bid of Edward J. Laperouse Metal Works Incorporated in the amount of $1,049,934 for the project titled Hurricane Ida Repair Renovations, Old Courthouse Roof Replacement, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer an agreement and any all relevant documents. Mr. Melvin will move on Mr. Grove's behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence. That absence being Councilman Grow. Item 43, resolution approving an agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and High Tide Consultants, LLC for the project titled LPG Sewer Surplus Disposition, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any all relevant documents. Ms. Chesson will move on behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? Mr. Melvin.
Yes, sir. I had received a couple calls on this because they were concerned about, and I know this district does not have the one in particular is one in my neighborhood, Parkside. It doesn't have a board, but I know the parish is in charge of it, and it's done a pretty good job, actually. We had a little hiccup this past year. We had to do a little work, but some of my residents were just concerned about getting a fee increase, tax increase, what have you, if a fee increase, if a private company took it over, which, I mean, I know things go up eventually, but they just didn't. They were very concerned that if the government turned it over, that they'd see some dramatic increases. And I know, you know, the nuisance complaint / sewage department here / garbage has done a good job taking care of it. And I'm not going to be for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Raise your hand, nays. Okay, motion passes with 6 yeas, 2 nays, the nays being Mr. Araby and Mr. Melvin, and 1 absent being Mr. Grove. Got it? All right. Item 44, resolution amending resolution number 22-141 and approving an addendum to the agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and Gros Flores Positary LLC for engineering services for the project titled Hurricane Ida Repair Renovations Project, and authorize the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said addendum and any and all relevant documents. Mr. Melvin will move on Mr. Grove's behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passed, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, that absence being Councilman Grove. Item 45, resolution accepting the low bid of Roof Technologies Incorporated in the amount of $172,302 for the project titled Hurricane Ida Repair Renovations, Sheriff's Office Roof Replacement, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer an agreement and any and all relevant documents. Mr. Melvin move on Mr. Grove's behalf of the administration, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grove. Item 46, resolution appointing 1 member to the Lafourche Parish Community Action Advisory Board's low-income representative, North Lafourche Region. Mr. Jones for the administration. Who do you have, Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Sharita Marshall.
Ms. Marshall, second, Mr. Adams. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Is anyone opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Councilman Grove. Brings us to item O, Parish President, Department Heads, Directors, or Managers' Reports, Presentation, or Updates. Number 47, Financial Representative to present the monthly financial report as required by the state agreed upon procedures for June 2023. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You guys should have all received an email with the financials. The actual PowerPoint will be at the end of next month for the end of the quarter.
Thank you, sir. Brings us to item P, questions for the administration. None? Brings us to item Q for discussion, open discussion. Anybody got any last comments? Mr. Melvin?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to say that I know, you know, the debate was very spirited, which is fine. People put us in these chairs to carry their, you know, concerns. And I know that I don't think there's anybody on this council or in administration that wakes up in the morning thinking how they can harm the parish. I really don't. I think we have some good people. And whether any election in the future or in past, I know that we try to do the best we can with what we have. And whether we're talking about any subject of any folks, that when there is an election for whether it's teachers or anything else, that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to, I just think it's wrong that if people vote themselves something in their district that they're paying for, and the rest of the parish undoes it, I think that's canceling out the vote, and I strongly feel that it's unconstitutional by law. And that's not personal against anybody. I just think that that's a serious matter when you cancel somebody's vote in this country. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say again, you know, just remember, the people that vote on it don't necessarily pay that tax. I think that's unconstitutional. So we can debate this all night long. Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one thing, was at the NACO convention this past weekend, and I'd like to congratulate our parish president for being elected to the chairman of the Energy, Environment, and Land Use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. President, for a good showing at NACO for Lafourche Parish. Also, our administrator for being vice chair of transportation for NACO. So thank you, Mr. Administrator, for your job.
Very good. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for coming, for the 3 councilmen that did. It was a weekend where, you know, all of the people behind me sit on their various steering committees, and we push a lot of stuff through, whether it's related to transportation or energy and oil and gas production, and especially Saturday morning. I know in the past, Councilman Chesson, Mr. Wendell have been to the Coastal Caucus meetings. So it was a productive weekend for us. We got some good business handled, and look forward to the next year. And Mr. Melvin and Mr. Araby, just so you know, the item for the sewers, we actually didn't sell it to High Tide. We hired High Tide to go figure out if we can sell it and how to make that work. So we'll be coming back to you with a recommendation in the future of how that's going to work. Those things are money pits for us. Again, no council has ever wanted to raise the rates on those residents either, because of mostly political reasons, when it comes to look like you're raising taxes. But those things are money pits. The only one we're going to have to hold on to at the very end is the one in Marydale that we got a grant on back in 2019. We have to hold on to that one for at least 5 more years because of the grant, but I would love to get out of the sewer business. You know, Chris does a great job in solid waste kind of overseeing them, but they're all privately contracted out anyway. We actually pay somebody to take care of them. So again, one of those streamlining of government sorts of things. But that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just end it by saying that I know there's a lot of insinuation and that, you know, our employees don't do as good of a job as others. And I just will sit here and defend our employees, as we do have some heck of operators, and I'm thankful for what they do for me in my district. So, and I know that there was a lot of kind of things said about it, but Dylan, know that I'm appreciative of what our employees do, because I know I'm friends with a bunch of those guys. So
Thank you very much for that.
you're quite welcome. With that said, I entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved by Mr. Adams, second by Mr. Jones, that there's no further business. Lafourche Parish Council regular meeting of July 25th, 2023 will be adjourned at 19:15 hours. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passed, 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent. Absent being Councilman Grove. Ooh, yeah.